Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Many of you may be wondering why the Department of Defense is here at an early childhood nutrition conference. But, you know, the DoD has the largest employer-sponsored early childhood program in the nation. We serve over 200,000 children every day. And secondly, the issue of nutrition has been a long-term interest of the department. After World War II, military leaders approached Congress because they were very concerned that 40% of the rejected recruits were as a result of poor nutrition. And so Congress acted and sponsored the National School Program, lunch program in 1946. So we fast forward 70 years, and while the issue is the opposite, it's not poor nutrition, it's obesity, our military leaders are still very concerned. There is a nonpartisan national security organization called Mission Readiness that is comprised of over 550 admirals, generals, and senior military leaders who have two platforms that they're really advocating for. One is high-quality early childhood, and the second is preventing childhood obesity, because they consider this a national security issue. So today I want to share with you some of the resources that we've developed in the department, specifically for military families and military providers, but our approach has been to work very closely in partnership with the USDA and the land-grant university system to make these resources accessible to the larger American population. And while I'm going to go through these slides very quickly, they will be on your Dropbox. There's going to be hot links to them so that you can download them. So the first one is the Military Family Learnings Network, and this is a virtual learning network that's comprised of military service providers and in partnership with Cooperative Extension. And our goal is really to create a rich and supportive informal virtual network of professionals who serve military families, but again, the topics are universal. We have communities of practice, and I think two of interest to this group would be family development, and the one we have on nutrition and wellness. All of the webinars are archived and available to download. And the next one is the nutrition and wellness one. And again, we're using social media and blogs to get the word out to those of interested professionals who could use these opportunities to increase their professional development. We were very pleased that Claudia was included in the previous panels. We've been working very closely with Penn State and Better Kid Care, but we have another project that we're considering this our legacy project. We have over 40,000 direct care providers in our system who continuously turn over and need training, and we have training and curriculum specialists assigned to our centers and our family child care homes, but we also need an additional mechanism to deliver training. So the Virtual Lab School, in partnership with Ohio State, provides the basic training for a paraprofessional who works in an early childhood development program. We also expanded our direct care staff to include trainers and managers. And we're very excited that the content is open access and so available to your staff and your programs to improve their professional development. The next slide. So the third major legacy project that we have is the Clearinghouse for Military Family Readiness for military families. And those of us in the federal department are constantly besieged with ensuring that we're providing evidence-based programs, and that's a little squishy for family support. We don't have a lot of evidence behind what we do. We have gut feelings, and we have some understanding that what we do to support families does make a difference on their outcomes. And so we engaged with Penn State to develop the Clearinghouse to actually place programs on a continuum of evidence to show us, as the users of these programs, would they work in our environments? Is it something that we could use to benefit military families, or really all families? They're just not military programs. And they have, up until now, have vetted over 1,000 programs. And what they do is they have a fact sheet on each one of those programs that you can look up by topic and use to make an informed decision on what you want to provide your families. Because this topic is of such interest to the department, we asked the Clearinghouse to develop a special resource center on preventing childhood obesity. And this Again, they're looking at programs to increase physical activity, provide better nutrition, improve the reduction of childhood obesity, and they have vetted the programs, and I can tell you the vast majority are unclear, but the clearinghouse provides technical assistance to help programs to get to a level to be ready for evaluation. And so we think that's a really important contribution to our field, whether it's in early childhood or any level of family support. One of the things that they developed is a messaging campaign for us. I think that's the last bullet. It's called 5210. And again, they did it specifically for the military community, but they also translated that information to the civilian community. All of those resources are free and downloadable for you to use in your programs. And this is an example of one of the fact sheets. So this is on a program that is geared for physical activity, I think. And what they do is they place it on the continuum. They show what the target audience is. They show what kind of evidence is behind that program and how training can be developed, what it costs, because that is important, and the time commitment of the professionals who may have to implement that. Go a little bit more into the 5210 campaign. It's 5 servings of fruits and vegetables, 2 hours of less of productive screen time, 1 hour of physical activity, and 0 sweetened beverages. And again, it's a campaign, it's a messaging campaign to get in our heads and to help parents get into their heads a simple message to live a healthy lifestyle. And what they've done is they developed materials for 16 different venues where families reside, whether it's the grocery store for the civilian community or the commissary for the military community, the child development center, the pediatrician's office. All of those places have a specific fact sheet on how to introduce the topic of 5210 so that parents catch on to it. And Dr. Skillman, I thought your reference that you have to hear it 7.5 times in order to act on it. So if you're seeing it all these different venues, it might catch hold and help parents really focus on what are good, healthy habits. These are kinds of the materials that are available. And Penn State is actually doing an evaluation of seeing if these materials and the message resonates with parents and changes behaviors. Important. So the last legacy project is a teaser. It's under development. It's not ready yet. We're ready to pilot it. It's 16 military installations. And one of the things that we found in our research with Penn State and the Resource Center on preventing childhood obesity is how important self-regulation is. And it really is going to take an education program to help parents understand what are healthy parenting initiatives. So while this is Parenting 101, throughout Thrive, it embeds healthy lifestyle in the curriculum. And so again, we'll be providing facilitator training. We're looking at having a different modality, face-to-face. We're going to do a hybrid, which would be face-to-face and online, and then an online, depending, because we know how busy parents are. But we're really excited of taking from birth through 18 across the spectrum of childhood development to really support parents to be all that they can be and reaching the goals that they have for their children's potential. And so there's more to come on that. There's nothing online yet. But we're very, very excited on the content, and we're really looking forward to the results of the pilot to see how well we can engage parents in their very busy schedules. So the last slide is the logic model that we base the curriculum on. So a lot of thought went into it. It's, again, based on a lot of different research on parenting information and how they receive that information and then how they apply it. Am I okay? Yeah.
So thank the panel for being on time, because that gives you the opportunity to ask a lot of questions. They were excellent in terms of their adherence, although somewhat resentful, I might add. But while you're thinking of a question, I was thinking as the various presentations were going on, how much information is going on across these departments and activities and how hard it is to absorb it. And one of the things that I experienced when I was still at CDC was the degree of collaboration that was beginning to occur across government, and that was not characteristic of prior administrations. So I wonder if you could comment on the process by which you exchange information so that there's not a lot of duplication and more complementarity. And you don't all have to respond, but I'd like to hear some of that. Meredith?
I can start. Well, I know within HHS, really what got us working better together was after the HHS Healthy Weight Task Force recommendations came out, and then there was a series of...
You mean the White House Task Force report?
No, the HHS.
Oh, the HHS.
The internal recommendations. So that brought together some working groups, 8 working groups, I think, around the HHS recommendations, one of which was early childhood. And so that's really when we started working with ACF on a very regular basis. And our work group did expand quickly because we realized that we needed folks from Department of Defense, we needed folks from Department of Education, and for a while we had a regular meeting. It's ebbed and flowed, and but that was really, I think that was really critical for kickstarting a lot of the collaboration. And then what happened is a lot of us got really involved in some very specific projects like Let's Move Childcare, and then that really took us down a deep collaboration on a very specific area, and now we're needing to move back up and say, okay, wait a minute, we went down to, not too narrow, but for a time, and we lost the larger collaboration, so we're reinstating, at least I know CDC and ACF are reinstating more regular communication and virtual meetings for collaboration.
Steve?
I guess is this on?
I think so.
So in 2010, when we were trying to figure out if the Early Learning Challenge grants, which support the state systems of early learning, was going to actually happen. It came up, it died, it came up again, it died again. And in the dead part, before it resurrected, the 2 secretaries, Arnie Duncan and Kathleen Sebelius, formed the Interagency Policy Board between Ed and HHS. And I think this was a terrific opportunity for those 2 departments to coordinate and collaborate around early learning issues. And of course, when we got these 2 grants, the Early Learning Challenge and Preschool Development grants, that work just built on that. And recently, and because we did this and we've been meeting for since 2010, Congress said, hey, that's pretty good. Why don't you involve some other agencies? So we had the Department of Defense, we've had USDA come in, we've had Labor and HUD, and now as we think of transitioning to a new administration, there's an election in November, hopefully you'll come out and vote, that we want to think about how we can make that last, how we can integrate that into the work of at the federal level. So we're looking at ways in which to bring on, in a permanent basis, some of those agencies to make this work more long-lasting.
Barbara?
If I can, we were very lucky in the Department of Defense. Military families has a very special place in the hearts of Mrs. Obama and President Obama. And so President Obama he convened all of the federal agencies to come together to decide how each one of them could support military families. And so there's a Presidential Study Directive 9, which every cabinet head, not the heads, they're action officers, we all worked together on what they could do, and a report was developed and published, and President Obama when it was released, told them that this was their report card and that he would be checking up on them every year to make sure that they were fulfilling what they promised in this report. And so it really did start, this was in 2009, and we would all meet together, all the different agencies, we would do it probably once a month and, hash out what they could do, what was needed, what were the gaps, what were the strengths, and it's really a remarkable document that we tout a lot.
And what you're hearing, it's important to point out, is the kind of internal accountability that this administration is really holding practice and this collaboration. Questions from the floor? If not, I have another.
I'm going to say one thing while we're waiting for a question, which is that, in early childhood, you may be familiar with a lot of people saying, this is a fragmented system, and, we really can't afford to do that given all the things, all the vision that we have. And for us, it's really simple. Also, for many years, encouraging states and programs to collaborate. The federal government, we really believe very strongly that we need to collaborate and walk the talk at our level, too. So that's why a lot of these changes have happened. Sorry.
Tracy?
Tracy Fox, a nutrition policy consultant and a retired naval officer, so it's great to see DOD at the table. You oftentimes don't see DOD at the table at a lot of these health meetings, so appreciate Nemours identifying the important role you all are playing. Cindy, I had a question about CACFP, like when the regs are going to be final. Simple question. No, I'm kidding. I know you can't answer that, although I have to say, when you said it's imminent, but then your slide said by the end of the year, those are two kind of different things, but that's okay. I did have a question on implementation of the regulations, because as we saw with school meals, obviously just because you pass a regulation, pass a law, pass a regulation, there's a lot that has to be done on implementation. And I have a concern, and I know it's shared, that I think even with CACFP, it's even more challenging, just because of the staff that you're working with. It's not oftentimes the meal service is one of their many jobs. So, and you mentioned that you have a number of tools and resources that are certainly in place and coming down the pike. I agree with you. Team nutrition materials are the best kept secret. That should probably change. But I'm just curious, based on what we've seen in school meals. And you all were in the trenches with understanding all too well the importance of implementation. Are you kind of thinking a little differently down the road in terms of CACFP beyond some of the traditional, well, we have these toolkits and we hope that our partners can help kind of thing?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I guess the way I would answer that is that I believe and am very hopeful that we've learned some important lessons from the experience we had with the school meals changes. I will say that we try very hard, and we always try very hard when we're changing standards and implementing standards to take into account the realities on the ground. So, as I mentioned before, for example, we built the new meal standards with the understanding that there were no additional financial resources available. Now, that said, we also know that change is challenging, no matter how hard one tries to accommodate the realities on the ground. I will say that for me, probably the biggest lesson learned from the school meals program was how to communicate and message around oversight and implementation and what that means. I think in the child nutrition programs, they are programs that we run in conjunction with the state. The states are responsible for oversight, and we did realize in the school meal experience that we needed to help. All of the partners involved needed to understand that the goal was to get folks there. The goal was to be successful, and that we do need to realize that when we're in an implementation period, we're in an implementation period, and the most important thing is not to sort of do your reviews and make sure that every slight infraction is captured in your write-up, but that you're looking for what's important, and to realize that you're going to be in a transition phase for several years, and we really scrambled, I think, a little bit in the school meals experience to get that message out and to work with our state partners and to get that common understanding. And I'm very hopeful that having gone through that, we'll be able to build on that experience with our state partners in the CACFP world, so that the operators will not feel like it's a punitive change environment, but a supportive change environment.
Okay, other questions?
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Sweeting. I work with the Office of the State Superintendent of Education, and I'm the program coordinator for the DC Free Summer Meals Program. And so I'm happy someone brought up CACFP because I used to be a specialist for CACFP. But my question directly relates to the partnership with military bases and families with working more with the Summer Food Service Program. I know that in the District of Columbia, Joint Base Anacostia Bowling participates in the CACFP program, but they don't participate in SFSP. And there is a lot of focus on working with the younger age children to make sure they have proper nutrition and exercise to decrease obesity. But there tends to be sometimes a gap with the older children and them also getting proper nutrition and exercise. So my question is about the collaboration between USDA and the DoD with regard to the Summer Food Service Program and trying to get that implemented on bases. Thank you.
Yes, we were approached by a former military officer who is now at the USDA working the summer food program. And we actually, one of my staff who's a dietitian works with that office. And we have a program, it's a mapping program, and it shows by zip code where military children live by age and if they're active duty or reserve component. And it is a common access card security. You can't, just anybody can't access, but another government agency can. And so we're working with them to identify where those children are and how to support them. So this is the third year that we've been really trying to get the word out. We get it out through our child and youth program managers, as well as the dietitians on the installation that Karen has a really strong relationship with. So it has been, in the works that we've been working very closely with the FNS, right?
Yeah, and if I could just add to that, I mean, you referenced the relationship between CACFP and the summer feeding program, and one of the things we have tried very hard to do over the last several years is to make it more seamless for organizations who want to participate in both programs to do so. So we've done a lot in the area of policy flexibility, as well as trying to do outreach to help folks understand that yes, they are two distinct programs, and there are some things one has to do to participate in both, but that it is a manageable process. So I'm saying this because those of you that work with the child care community in particular, if you haven't thought about or taken a look at the summer program in a number of years, things have changed a lot in terms of the flexibility to move between programs. So I really want to encourage you to do so if you haven't.
Hi, I'm Adrienne Dorff with the Washington State Department of Early Learning. And I'm just thinking of a couple of challenges that I'm seeing between programs that I'm hoping you all can fix. So I'm sure you will be able to. One of them relates to, I've always been trying to figure out a way to share program data between WIC and Head Start, and especially even our local preschool programs, so that, say, Head Start programs wouldn't have to weigh and measure children because, gosh, WIC folks do such a good job of it. And it really makes it challenging at the local level for every single Head Start program to contact most of them have children going to numerous WIC programs throughout a community, so it's always really challenging to gather that data. So it'd be nice if there could be some way at a higher level to get that data shared between the two programs. The other area I was wondering about is...
Let's answer that question first. That
okay, you're going to answer it? You can answer it for me?
That sounds like a
Great.
Software fix, right?
I was just giving you food for thought, but great.
Yeah, okay, I'll make a call. I think data sharing is one of those thorny issues when it comes to all this collaboration we're talking about that really is an unnecessary barrier, and we do need to do more work on it. So I think that's something that that we are thinking about, but I don't know well enough the specifics that might be proposed and might be in our new Head Start program performance standards to really address this. But I can take it back and talk.
It sounds like the three of you should have dinner.
Yeah. It sounds like it, right?
Yeah, I mean, that seems to me, if they're not, I don't think there are HIPAA issues involved in that.
No, sometimes it is HIPAA, but what I hear from our state WIC office is that they can't share data that's, personal information.
Sometimes those
but it's another federal program.
And sometimes they're realities, so that's the thing that I need to go back and check. Because we do often have situations where people say, oh, that's against the Head Start rules, and then it turns out there's it's not really, so I don't know enough about this particular case to answer the question, but I can bring it back and talk to
So
people.
Cindy, from the WIC side, can that be fixed?
Yeah, and I'm afraid I don't have the expertise in WIC either, but I want to reiterate that point, is that it's definitely worth investigating, because, you know, it is entirely possible that sometimes, you know, programs are statutorily designed usually in a vacuum, so there may be protections and actual limitations, but we have also repeatedly had the experience where we'd be out in the field and we'll hear someone say, well, the federal regulations don't allow this, and that's simply not true. So it's definitely worth further exploration.
Your second point?
Well, my second one was relating to the challenges between, say, Head Start programs that are located on a school, and so their food comes from the National School Lunch Program. And what I'm hearing from our school districts is that they will not allow the teacher to eat the food unless the program pays them for it. So when they're trying to do family-style dining and have the adult be a role model and sit with the children and eat, they're being told, oh no, you can't do that. If we see that teacher eating the food, you're going to be in trouble. So this message is they have to pay for the food through the National School Lunch Program, as opposed to when you're on CACFP, that usually isn't an issue. Okay, those are my two challenges. I can stop there.
Well, just to respond to that point, yeah, unfortunately, that is one of those situations where they are correct, that the federal our programs are structured. We do per meal reimbursement, and the eligible entity is the child. So, you know, we do hear that feedback sometimes, that can be problematic both in school and child care settings, but it's the program structure that we have at the moment.
Okay, other questions? Was that 1 minute?
Sorry, there's a response.
Or one more question?
I just wanted
Yeah,
to...
you're timing me now.
I just wanted to respond to the intriguing question about sharing data, and remember the child's medical home is collecting the same data too. And so that we're all collecting this data and other data, and it would be wonderful to share. But I do think it is a HIPAA issue, but we also have to address that, obviously, with the families at the center of the decision.
Okay, well join me in thanking the panel.